Hello, today we're going to be going over cognitive biological development. Understanding development can help you answer two very important questions. How did I become the person I am today? And who will I become tomorrow? The first component that can help answer that question is heredity, nature, which is the transmission of physical and psychological characteristics from parents to offspring through genes. DNA is a molecular structure that contains coded genetic information, while genes are specific areas on that strand of the DNA that carry the hereditary information. So a baby can have on their own DNA genes both from their mom and from their father. And there are two types of genes. There is dominant gene and recessive gene. A dominant gene is a gene whose influence will be expressed each time the gene is present. So if, for example, if the brown eyes gene is considered a dominant gene, then if one of the parents transferred that gene to the child, then the child's eyes will be automatically brown. Recessive gene is a gene whose influence will be expressed only when it is paired with a second recessive gene. For example, if blue eyes gene, like the coding of the DNA, is considered to be a recessive gene, only if both the mother and the father transferred that gene to the child DNA, the child will have blue eyes. The second component that can influence one's development is the environment, nurture, which is the sum of all external conditions affecting development, including and especially the effects of learning. Prenatal influences, those are environmental factors that influence development before birth. So some examples might be the mother's stress levels while she's pregnant, the mother's nutrition, if the mother consumes alcohol or drugs, or potentially if she underwent some sort of x-ray while she was pregnant. Those elements can be influence the child and would be considered prenatal influences. The sensitive periods, those when during the development, it's a period of increased sensitivity to environmental influences. It is also the time during which certain events must take place for normal development to occur. So during certain sensitive periods of time in the child development, there needs to be created a loving bond between with the parents. Language abilities need to be developed. Otherwise, if those won't happen during certain sensitive periods, the child development might be hindered. Deprivation is the loss or withholding of normal stimulation, nutrition, comfort, love, and etc. So it's a condition of lack. Whereas enrichment is deliberately making an environment more stimulating, nutritional, comforting, loving, etc. And obviously, as you can imagine, enrichment is the better element for a more healthy and happy development of the child. So then researchers raise the important, what influences one's development more, nature or nurture? If you think about our health, for example, well, you can think, okay, so because of my biological genes, for example, I have a slow metabolism. So perhaps, every burger or French fry that I eat is influencing my development in a certain way. But it can also be your nurture, the environment, like you actually consuming the fast food instead of more, vegetables or fruit that can influence the way your body is developed or even your health. So for example, if you consume a lot of sugar, that would be considered your nurture, right? Your environment. But perhaps you biologically, genetically, is more prone to develop one type of diabetes, for example. How about our education? Nature or nurture? Well, you can once again argue both. On one element, you might just have a better ability and a better memory, for example, to remember different facts and different information, which might help you to, prep for that SATs or the GREs much more easier. But it's also the environment. If you have encouraging parents or you yourself with your personality, for example, you have better schools or better teachers that push you and challenge you to be better, that might influence your levels of education as well. How about mate preferences? Well, there's research to support the fact that, opposites attract. There are also research to support that there's some sort of cultural element to it. So, for example, if you grew up in a more racially diverse environment, you are more likely to be attracted to individuals from different backgrounds. But it also one research did a project. They elaborated with Photoshop pictures of the participants' parents and modified them a little bit, and they found that participants found the pictures containing the characteristics of their parents more attractive than characteristics of somebody else's parent. Don't read in too much creepiness into this. It just tells you that there might be something, biological, or even, you recognize that face, it's more familiar to you. And we're gonna go over during the social unit about how familiarity with an individual increases your attraction to that individual. Now, an important question: how can we test this? How can we test whether it's nature or nurture or both? Well, a lot of the research did what they do is twin studies. However, it's slightly, if not extremely, unethical, right? We can't just take a mother and a dad who, created identical twins, usually are better for these types of studies, and be like, you know what? Which one do you like more? All right, then that baby's gonna stay with you, and the other one we're gonna give to a different family in a different part of the world. Let's see what happens. The IRB, the institution for the review board for examining if studies are ethical or not, will kind of throw a fit and be like, maybe not. So it's a little bit problematic to do such studies. The good cases that you can find about it is when there were already created cases where the twins were separated at birth due to one reason or another, and then you can see kind of hindsight, how did they develop and what environments they were at and things like that. But once again, then you can have issues whether it's a correlation or an actual causation and all that wonderful stuff. All right, so now we're going to move talking a little bit about language development.